I remember the buzz of my phone on a lazy Sunday afternoon, the kind of day when you're content with doing absolutely nothing. But that vibration against the coffee table sent a jolt through me, more electrifying than any cup of coffee could. It was Marco, a name I hadn't seen light up my screen in years, but one that still managed to make my heart skip a beat. "Hey, long time no see. Remember me?" His message teased, accompanied by a wink emoji. Memories, long buried under the monotony of married life, surged forth like a flood breaking through a dam. We agreed to meet for coffee, just as friends, but who were we kidding? The moment I saw Marco, it was like no time had passed. His smile still had that devil-may-care charm that could disarm me in a heartbeat. As we laughed over memories of our college escapades, he leaned in, his voice dropping to that familiar, enticing whisper. "Let's do something crazy," he suggested, the twinkle in his eye impossible to resist. I found myself nodding before the thought process could even kick in. Just like that, I was on the brink of an affair, convinced that Alex, my husband, too caught up in his world of deadlines and conference calls, wouldn't even notice. That night, as I fabricated a story about needing to stay late at work, the thrill of deception was palpable. Meeting Marco felt like stepping into an alternate reality where I wasn't just the wife, the career woman, the responsible adult. I was someone desirable, someone worth the risk. Our affair spiraled quickly from there, each secret rendezvous more daring than the last, each lie slipping off my tongue a little more easily. Juggling my time between Alex and Marco became a dangerous game I played with precision. I had answers for everything: working late, sudden business trips, last-minute emergencies. I was playing with fire, but the excitement was too intoxicating to resist. Then came the day Alex came home early, the front door swinging open to reveal his confused face as he called out my name, only to find the house empty. Panic surged through me when I walked in hours later to find him waiting, an unreadable expression on his face. "Work's been crazy," I stammered, hating how my voice trembled. He nodded, seemingly satisfied, but the look in his eyes, a mix of suspicion and hurt, haunted me. I knew I was walking on thin ice, but the pull of my desires, the allure of my secret life with Marco, was too potent to ignore. The affair, once a thrilling escape, had woven itself into the fabric of my daily life, a routine as familiar yet perilous as walking a tightrope. The danger of discovery loomed over us like a dark cloud, but I was too far gone, too entangled in the web of lies I'd spun, to turn back now. The guilt was like a shadow, always trailing just a step behind the thrill. Each time Alex looked at me with those trusting eyes, a pang of something awful twisted in my stomach. I'd brush it off, drown it in the excitement of sneaking around, but it was always there, lurking. It wasn't just the lying that got to me. It was the look in his eyes, the way he still believed in us, in me, even when I was miles away, lost in another's arms. Then Priya saw us. It was supposed to be a quick, inconspicuous lunch with Marco, but there she was, staring at us from across the street. The panic that shot through me was electric, paralyzing. But Priya, with a look that carried 1,000 words, just nodded. Later, she pulled me aside, her voice a mix of concern and disbelief. "I won't tell," she promised, but her disappointment was a weight I wasn't prepared to carry. That secret, now shared, felt heavier, more real. Marco's impatience only added to the pressure. "I want more," he'd say, his demands growing as my ability to juggle the lies began to falter. I was caught in the thrill, the danger, but each demand from Marco was a reminder of the reality I was trying to escape. I brushed off the strain it put on my marriage, convincing myself that Alex's late nights at the office meant he was too distracted to notice, too busy to care. But Alex did notice. One evening, he cornered me with questions about my frequent overtime and emergency meetings. His voice was calm, but there was a hardness in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "Is everything okay at work? You've been so distant," he pressed. I countered with assurances, citing stress and deadlines, watching as he nodded, wanting so badly to believe me. Yet, the doubt lingered between us, an uninvited guest that refused to leave. The risk-taking escalated when I lied about a girl's getaway to spend a weekend with Marco. The thrill of being with him, away from all the lies, was intoxicating. We were in our bubble, a world where consequences didn't exist. But they did. A forgotten receipt from that weekend found its way into Alex's hands. It was just a piece of paper, but it might as well have been a grenade, ready to blow my life apart. That receipt was the silent harbinger of a storm I wasn't prepared for, a storm that was about to break over a life built on lies and fleeting moments of stolen happiness. The guilt, the thrill, the denial, all of it was spiraling toward an inevitable end, and I was powerless to stop it. The air between Alex and me had shifted, thick with unspoken accusations and a coldness that crept into our once warm home. His once casual, loving glances turned into scrutinizing, distant stares. The change was subtle at first, a missed dinner here, a forgotten conversation there, but it grew, a mounting wave of suspicion that I couldn't ignore. My own paranoia mirrored his withdrawal. Every phone call he received, every late return home, I wondered if he knew, if the truth was inching closer to shattering our fragile peace. It was Priya who broke first. Her guilt over keeping my secret became too much, her words a desperate plea, "You have to end this. It's not just you and Marco in this story. It's Alex, it's all of us." Her concern was genuine, a stark contrast to the tangled web of lies and deceit I'd woven. I found myself nodding, agreeing to end the affair, but the resolve was weak, my heart torn between the thrill of Marco and the stability of my life with Alex. My indecision haunted me, a constant shadow in my mind. I planned to tell Marco it was over, rehearsing the words, but each meeting ended with me falling deeper into the mess I'd made. It was a cycle of guilt and longing, a loop I couldn't seem to escape. The unexpected came not with a whisper but a storm. Alex, my Alex, had reached his limit, his love turning into a quest for the truth. A private investigator, photographs, messages, a dossier of betrayal laid bare on our kitchen table. The evidence was irrefutable, each picture, each text, a hammer to the life we'd built together. His voice broke the silence. "How could you?" The pain in Alex's eyes, the hurt in his voice, it cut deeper than any accusation. The room spun, a carousel of emotions, as I faced the ruin of our marriage, the destruction of trust. I tried to explain, words tumbling out in a chaotic stream, trying to convey my feelings of neglect, my search for something that made me feel alive again. But the words sounded hollow, even to my ears. The confession changed everything. Alex's anger, his pain, it was a mirror to my guilt, a reflection of the hurt I'd caused. The truth, once a hidden shadow, was now a glaring spotlight on the wreckage of our relationship. The demand for an explanation, my confession, it was the breaking point, a chasm too wide to cross with apologies or promises. The reality of my actions, the consequences of my choices, were laid bare, a foundation of trust shattered beyond repair. The moment Alex walked out the door, the finality of his decision weighed on me like a ton of bricks. His words, "I need some time alone," echoed through the empty spaces of our home, leaving me with nothing but the ghosts of our past and the debris of my actions. I reached for my phone countless times, drafting messages, making calls that went straight to voicemail. Each attempt to bridge the chasm I'd created met with silence, a clear sign that Alex was not ready to hear anything I had to say. In desperation, I turned to Marco, seeking solace, or perhaps a scapegoat for the mess I'd made. But Marco's reaction was a cold splash of reality. "You let us get caught," he spat, his words laced with blame and anger. It was a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that the person I'd risked everything for was now turning his back on me, angered not by the hurt caused, but by the inconvenience of exposure. The fallout was swift. Friends who had once been mutual confidants sided with Alex, their loyalty, unlike mine, unwavering. Invitations dried up. Social media became a minefield of indirect jabs and pointed silences. The isolation was suffocating, a constant reminder of the cost of my choices. It was in this solitude that the full weight of my actions settled in. Regret became my constant companion, whispering reminders of what I had thrown away for fleeting moments of excitement. When the legal documents arrived, citing my infidelity as the grounds for divorce, it felt as if the world I knew was officially ending. Alex's decision to formalize our separation with legal proceedings stripped away any lingering hope of reconciliation. The reality of my situation became impossible to ignore, each signature a reminder of the irreversible damage my actions had caused. The divorce process unveiled the extent of my financial dependence on Alex. The house, the car, the comfortable lifestyle, all of it was tied to him, to us. Now, faced with the prospect of starting over, the financial strain was overwhelming. I scrambled to make sense of budgets, legal fees, and living arrangements, a stark contrast to the life I had grown accustomed to. In the midst of legal battles and financial turmoil, I was forced to confront the consequences of my actions head on. The security and love I had taken for granted were gone, replaced by uncertainty and regret. Alone, with the pieces of my fractured life laid bare, I began to understand the true cost of my choices, a lesson learned too late in the game. The day I left our home for the last time, suitcase in hand and heart heavy, marked the beginning of my new reality. Forced to vacate the life I once cherished, I stepped into an uncertain future, the weight of starting over pressing down on me with each step I took away from the front door. The home that had been a sanctuary was now just a painful reminder of everything I'd lost. The affair, once a secret shared between two, became the talk of the town, spreading like wildfire and igniting whispers of judgment and disdain. Colleagues who once greeted me with warm smiles now offered nothing but cold shoulders. Friends, or those I thought were friends, turned their backs, leaving me to navigate the turbulent waters of public humiliation alone. Marco, the catalyst of my downfall, became another casualty in the aftermath. When confronted with the real-world consequences of our actions, he chose self-preservation, cutting ties with a finality that left me reeling. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice devoid of the warmth I had grown accustomed to. Just like that, the fantasy was shattered, leaving me to pick up the pieces of my broken reality. The isolation and loss bore down on me, a relentless force that dragged me into the depths of depression. Days blended into nights, and sleep became my only escape from the relentless cycle of guilt and regret. The world outside became a blur, a distant memory of a life I once knew but could no longer claim as my own. The day the divorce was finalized felt like a mere formality, a legal acknowledgement of the chasm that had long existed between Alex and me. The finality of the judge's decree severed the last tie to the person I once was, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Moving day arrived with a stark reminder of my new reality. The small, nondescript apartment I now called home was a far cry from the comfort and security I had taken for granted. Its bare walls and echoing silence were a testament to the choices I'd made, a daily reminder of everything I had lost. To add insult to injury, my job, once a source of pride and independence, became another casualty of my unraveling life. The affair and its fallout had not gone unnoticed by my employers, and my once stellar performance suffered under the weight of my personal turmoil. The day I was let go, the reasons unspoken but clear, marked the loss of the last semblance of normalcy I had clung to. In the wake of everything, I found myself stripped of the life I had known, forced to confront the consequences of my actions. The journey from our shared home to my sparse apartment was not just a physical move but a transition into a new chapter, one marked by loss, learning, and the daunting task of rebuilding from the ground up. The silence of my new, bare apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the life I once lived, filled with laughter, warmth, and companionship. It was in this solitude that the full weight of my choices crashed down on me, forcing me to confront the pain I'd caused and the ruin I'd made of my own life. The walls, devoid of any personal touch, mirrored the emptiness I felt inside, a constant reminder of the cost of my betrayal. In a moment of desperate clarity, I penned a letter to Alex, pouring out apologies and acknowledging the hurt I'd inflicted. It was an attempt to mend bridges I'd burned, or perhaps a way to ease my own guilt. I dropped the letter in the mail with a heavy heart, hoping for forgiveness I knew I didn't deserve. Days turned into weeks with no reply, a silent confirmation of the irreparable damage I'd done. Facing financial realities, I took the only job I could find, a stark departure from my previous career. The work was mundane, the pay barely enough to cover my bills, but it was a necessary step towards independence, a way to prove to myself that I could start over, no matter how humbling the circumstances. The loneliness was most acute at night, in the quiet hours when the world seemed to pause but my mind raced, replaying my choices and their fallout. I longed for the comfort of my old life, the familiarity and security I'd taken for granted, now lost to me forever. In a weak moment, I reached out to Marco, seeking closure or perhaps a semblance of the connection we once shared. But my attempts were met with silence, a bitter pill that confirmed his betrayal and solidified my isolation. Scrolling through social media one evening, I stumbled upon pictures of Alex, smiling, surrounded by new friends, maybe even a new love. The sight was a knife to my heart, not because he'd moved on, but because I was glad he had. It was a painful yet necessary reminder of the consequences of my actions, a realization that his happiness was no longer intertwined with mine. This realization pushed me to seek support, to find others who understood the complexities of navigating the aftermath of infidelity and divorce. The therapy group I joined became a lifeline, a place where my feelings of guilt, loss, and loneliness were not only understood but shared. It was here, in the company of strangers bound by similar pains, that I found a glimmer of hope, a sense that rebuilding was possible. Each session, each shared story, was a step towards healing, a slow journey towards forgiveness, not from Alex, but from myself. The path was fraught with reminders of what I'd lost, but also with small victories, moments when the burden of guilt lightened just enough to let me breathe, to let me believe in the possibility of a future defined not by my past mistakes but by the lessons they taught me. In the end, the journey through my downfall and the tentative steps towards rebuilding offered a harsh but necessary lesson. Happiness is fragile, trust is precious, and redemption, while possible, comes not from the forgiveness of others but from the hard, often painful work of forgiving oneself.